Patricia nodded slowly. Then we build an airtight case. We gather every piece of evidence, financial records, recordings if possible, testimony from his previous victims. We give it to the authorities and let justice run its course. But Sophia, you need to understand, this will be hard. You'll have to face him, probably multiple times. You'll have to testify, relive the betrayal. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the woman I'd been 3 weeks ago, soft, trusting, desperate to be loved. Then I thought about the woman I was becoming, harder, wiser, forged in the fire of betrayal. Yes, I said firmly. I'm ready. The plan takes shape. Over the next month, my life became consumed with preparation. Patricia and her investigators compiled a comprehensive file on Marcus, his real identity, his past crimes, his current debts, his pattern of targeting vulnerable women. Adrian helped me understand the business side. He reviewed every document I'd signed, every account Marcus had access to, every conversation I could remember about my father's company. He's smarter than I initially thought, Adrian admitted one evening as we reviewed bank statements in his rented cottage. Look at this. He's been taking money in amounts that stay just under reporting thresholds. He knows exactly what he's doing. Can we stop him? I asked. We can stop him from taking more, Adrian said. You need to close those joint accounts, remove his access. But if we do that now, he'll know something's wrong. He'll run. So what do we do? Adrian smiled, that strategic smile I'd come to recognize. We let him think he's winning. We let him keep taking small amounts, building his case against himself. Meanwhile, we document everything. Every transaction is evidence. Every day he continues is another charge against him. It was agonizing, watching my money disappear in Marcus's hands, knowing he was probably spending it on Emma, laughing about how easy I was to deceive. But offered her money to help with the con, or he may have manipulated her emotionally, made her feel special, chosen. Without interviewing her, it's hard to say if she's a co-conspirator or another victim he's using. The thought of Emma as a victim too should have brought me comfort, but it didn't. Victim or not, she had still betrayed me. She had still laughed as they planned my destruction. There's more, Patricia said, pulling out another document. I had my investigator look into his current financial situation. Sophia, Marcus is broke. Not just low on cash, he's deeply in debt. Credit cards maxed out, loan payments overdue, even an eviction notice from 2 months ago that he somehow got dismissed. I stared at her. But he drives a Mercedes. He takes me to expensive restaurants. He bought me this ring. I gestured to my bare finger, remembering I'd left the ring under the dresser in my room. All on credit, Patricia said. The car is leased and 3 months behind on payments. The restaurants? He's been using your credit card, Sophia. Check your statements. I pulled out my phone with numb fingers and opened my credit card app. There they were. Charges I'd assumed were my own purchases, but now I saw the dates, the amounts. Every romantic dinner, every gift he'd given me, every surprise weekend getaway. I had paid for all of it without even knowing. He's been stealing from you for months, Patricia said quietly. Small amounts, careful not to trigger suspicion. He's a professional, Sophia. And if you had married him, he would have taken everything, your inheritance, your father's company, your future. Then he would have disappeared, leaving you with nothing but debt and shame. The tears came then, but they weren't weak tears. They were tears of fury, of betrayal so deep it felt like it might consume me. I want him destroyed, I said, my voice shaking with emotion. Not just stop, destroyed. I want him to face every consequence, every punishment. I want every grandmother's accounts under the pretense of helping manage her investments. Stole over $300,000 before the family caught on. I felt sick. What happened? Civil suit. He paid back a portion in a settlement, changed his name, moved to a different state. The family chose not to pursue criminal charges because the grandmother was in poor health and they didn't want the stress of a trial. He walked away with probably $200,000. And the second woman? Patricia flipped to another section. Younger, early 30s, successful businesswoman. He posed as a venture capitalist interested in funding her startup. They dated for 6 months. He convinced her to give him $50,000 for legal fees to set up the investment structure. He disappeared the next day. The room spun. How many others? That we can prove? Those 2. But I suspect there are more who never reported it. Women who were too embarrassed, too hurt, or too afraid of public humiliation. The pattern is always the same. He targets successful women, usually with family money or business connections. He's patient, charming, and always has an exit strategy. I thought about how carefully Marcus had studied me, learned my vulnerabilities, played into my fears of not being loved for myself. It wasn't personal. I was just another Mark. What about Emma? I asked, my voice hollow. Is she a victim too, or a partner? Patricia's expression softened slightly. That's harder to determine. According to the background check, your sister has some significant debt, student loans, credit cards, medical bills from a car accident 3 years ago that insurance didn't fully cover. She's been struggling financially for a while. I didn't know, I said quietly. She never told me. Pride, maybe. Or envy. Sometimes both. Patricia leaned forward. Marcus likely identified her vulnerabilities the same way he did yours. He may have. They're pulling the strings. What about your sister? How long have they known each other? He said they met 6 months before I did. That the whole thing was planned from the beginning. Patricia's eyes darkened. Premeditation. That's important. It shows intent, strategy. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was calculated fraud. What about his financial background? Did you ever verify his credentials? I felt my face flush. No. He said he was a financial consultant. He had business cards, nice clothes, seemed successful. My father did a basic background check before agreeing to bring him into company discussions, but nothing deep. I'll dig deeper, Patricia promised. I have investigators who can find out everything about Marcus Reynolds, his real financial status, his history, any previous complaints, or legal issues. Con artists rarely stop at one victim. The thought made my stomach turn. You think he's done this before? I'd bet my law degree on it, Patricia said flatly. The technique is too polished, too practiced. Men like Marcus spend years perfecting their craft, uncovering the web of lies. 2 weeks later, Patricia called me to her office with news that changed everything. Sit down, she said, her expression serious. What I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult to hear. I sat, my heart pounding. Marcus Reynolds isn't his real name, Patricia began, sliding a folder across her desk. His birth name is Marcus Sullivan. He changed it legally 7 years ago after being sued by 2 different women for fraud and breach of contract. I opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were court documents, photographs, news articles. Marcus, younger, but unmistakably him, stared back at me from a newspaper headline. Financial consultant accused of elder fraud. Elder fraud, I whispered. He befriended an 82-year-old widow, Patricia explained, her voice hard. Convinced her he was in love with her granddaughter. Gained access to become someone who intimidates them, someone they underestimate at their peril. Over the next week, Adrian helped me design my transformation. I started running every morning along the beach, pushing my body until my lungs burned and my legs ached. The physical pain was cleansing, burning away the weakness I felt. I changed my hair, cutting the long blonde locks I'd worn since college into a sleek, shoulder-length style, and adding subtle darker tones that made my green eyes stand out like emeralds. I updated my wardrobe, trading soft pastels and romantic dresses for sharp blazers, structured pants, and bold colors that commanded attention. But the most important changes were happening inside. Adrian introduced me to a friend of his, Patricia Chun, a lawyer who specialized in corporate fraud and family law. Patricia was in her 50s, with steel gray hair and eyes that could cut through lies like a scalpel. Tell me everything, Patricia said during our first meeting in her Harbor's Edge satellite office. And I mean everything. Don't leave out details because they're embarrassing or because you think they don't matter. In cases like this, every detail matters. I told her everything I'd overheard, everything I'd felt, everything I'd discovered. She recorded my statement, took notes, and asked questions that made me think about aspects of Marcus's behavior I hadn't even considered suspicious. He isolated you from your friends? Patricia asked, pen poised. Well, he didn't force me to stop seeing them, I said slowly. But he would make comments. Like, Jennifer seems jealous of our relationship. Or did you notice how Sarah always tries to get your attention away from me? After a while, it was just easier to spend time with him than deal with the drama. Classic manipulation, Patricia said, writing quickly. Abusers and con artists use this technique constantly. They make you think it's your choice while. Adrian wasn't just a business consultant. He was a master strategist. Over the next several days, he helped me create a plan so detailed, so carefully constructed, that even I was amazed. First, he said, spreading papers across the table in my room at the bed and breakfast. We need to understand exactly what Marcus is planning and how far along he is. You said you gave him access to your personal accounts. I nodded, shame creeping up my neck. Don't, Adrian said gently, reading my expression. Don't blame yourself for trusting someone you loved. That's what normal, healthy people do. Now, when did you sign those papers? The morning of the engagement party. 3.5 weeks ago. Adrian pulled out his laptop. Has he moved any money yet? I logged into my banking app, something I'd been avoiding out of fear. My hands trembled as the screen loaded. Then my breath caught. He's been taking small amounts, I whispered, staring at the transactions. 500 here, 800 there. Nothing large enough to trigger alerts, but I quickly calculated. He's taken over $12,000 in 3 weeks. Testing the waters, Adrian said grimly. Seeing if you notice, if the bank notices. Once he's confident the transfers are going undetected, he'll escalate. This is good. Good. I looked at him incredulously. Evidence, Adrian explained. Every transaction is documented proof of theft. Now, has he gained any access to your father's company accounts? I thought carefully. Not directly. But my father mentioned making him vice president after the wedding. He'd have signing authority on certain accounts then. So we have a timeline, Adrian said, making notes. The wedding is in 2.5 months, I finished. December 15th. Plenty of time, Adrian said. Here's what we're going to do. First, you're going to change. Not just emotionally, but physically, professionally. You need silence. He never pushed, never pried, but somehow always knew when I needed advice and when I just needed presence. You're different today, Adrian observed one morning, studying my face. Something shifted. He was right. The constant crying had stopped. The hollow ache in my chest had transformed into something else, something sharper, more focused. Anger was giving way to determination. I've been thinking, I said carefully, about what you said, about transformation being the best revenge. Adrian nodded, waiting. I want to become someone they won't recognize. Someone strong enough to face them without falling apart. But I also want. I hesitated, the words feeling dangerous on my tongue. I want justice. Real justice. Not just walking away and letting them win. Justice and revenge are cousins, Adrian said thoughtfully. But justice requires evidence, strategy, and patience. Revenge is impulsive and often destroys the avenger along with the enemy. Then I want justice, I said firmly. I want them to face consequences for what they plan to do. Not just to me, but to my family, to my father's company. Marcus told Emma he was planning fraud, embezzlement. That's criminal. Adrian's expression grew serious. If that's the path you choose, you need to be absolutely certain. Once you start gathering evidence, building a case, there's no going back. It will consume months of your life. It will be painful, and there's no guarantee of success. I'm certain, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. They tried to destroy me. The least I can do is make sure they don't destroy anyone else. Adrian smiled, not a happy smile, but one of respect. Then you're going to need help. And it just so happens I know a thing or two about investigating fraud and rebuilding what's been broken. The transformation begins. He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes, and walked away, hands in his pockets, leaving me alone with my thoughts, but somehow less lonely than before. That night, I finally turned on my phone. 53 missed calls, 31 text messages, 2 voicemails. I listened to the voicemails on speaker, my heart cold. The first was Marcus, his voice worried. Sophia, baby, where are you? Your parents are frantic. Please call me. I love you. We're all worried sick. The second was Emma, actually crying. Soph, please come home. We need to talk. I'm so sorry. Please, just call me back. Sorry for what, Emma? Sorry you got caught? Or sorry you planned to destroy me? I deleted both messages. Then I opened a new note on my phone and began to write. Everything I remembered. Every detail of what I had overheard. Every moment of their relationship I could recall that now made sense in this horrible new context. Every document I had signed. Every business detail Marcus had access to. I rode until my fingers cramped, until the first light of dawn crept through my window. And as I finally fell asleep, exhausted but strangely energized, I realized something important. I wasn't running anymore. I was planning. And by the time Marcus and Emma realized what was happening, it would be far too late. What did you think of part 1? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below where you're watching from. Part 2 is coming soon, where Sophia begins her transformation and discovers shocking secrets about Marcus's true plans. B2 Part 2, Rebuilding in Shadows. A new dawn, a new Sophia. Welcome back to Twisted Heartstrings. If you haven't watched Part 1 yet, go back and watch it now so you understand Sophia's journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe. 3 weeks had passed since I arrived in Harbor's Edge, and the woman staring back at me in the mirror was beginning to look like a stranger. A stronger stranger. Every morning, I met Adrian on that bench overlooking the ocean. We talk. Betrayal is a special kind of pain, Adrian said quietly. It's not just about what they did. It's about questioning your own judgment, your own worth. Wondering how you could have been so blind. Exactly, I whispered, feeling tears prick my eyes again. For what it's worth, Adrian continued, being trusting isn't a weakness. Being loving isn't stupidity. The people who betrayed you, they're the ones with the deficiency, not you. I let those words sink in, wanting desperately to believe them. What did you do? I asked. When you were betrayed? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight. At first, I wanted revenge. Wanted to hurt them the way they hurt me. Spent weeks planning elaborate ways to destroy them. Did you? He shook his head. No, because I realized that revenge, real revenge, isn't about destruction. It's about transformation. The best revenge is becoming so successful, so happy, so complete without them that they realize what they lost. And by the time they realize it, you no longer care. Something in his words resonated deep in my core. Not the hot, impulsive anger I had felt at the party, but something colder, more strategic. That takes time, I said. Yes, Adrian agreed. And patience. And most importantly, it requires you to actually heal, to actually become that better version of yourself. You can't fake it. We talked for another hour, about nothing and everything. I learned Adrian owned a consulting firm that helped struggling businesses restructure and thrive. He had been married once, betrayed by a wife who emptied their accounts and ran off with his business partner. The betrayal had nearly destroyed him, but he had rebuilt everything. His business, his life, his ability to trust. I should let you get back to your contemplation, Adrian said finally, standing. But if you'd like company again tomorrow, I usually walk this beach around 8. I might take you up on that, I said, relentlessly against the rocks. Beautiful, isn't it? A voice said. No matter how many times the rocks are struck, they remain standing. I turned to see a man approaching, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair touched with gray at the temples and kind eyes that had seen their share of storms. He wore an expensive watch but casual clothes, jeans, and a sweater. I'm sorry, he said, noticing my startled expression. I didn't mean to intrude. I come here most mornings. You look like you might appreciate some company. Or if you prefer solitude, I'll gladly disappear. There was something in his voice, genuine, warm, with no hidden agenda. After days of isolation with my dark thoughts, I surprised myself. Company might be nice, I said softly. He sat on the other end of the bench, careful to maintain respectful distance. I'm Adrian. Sophia. We sat in silence for a while, both watching the ocean. It was strange. I didn't feel pressured to make conversation, to perform, to be anything other than a broken woman trying to piece herself together. Running from something or towards something? Adrian finally asked. I laughed bitterly. Running from. Definitely running from. He nodded like he understood completely. I spent 6 months in this town 3 years ago, running from my own demons. This place has a way of giving you the space to breathe, to think, to heal. Does it work? I asked. The healing? Eventually, he said. But first you have to decide what you're healing from and what you're healing toward. There's a difference. I looked at him curiously. He didn't look away, didn't pry, just offered the observation and let it sit between us. Someone I loved betrayed me. I heard myself say. The words felt foreign in my mouth. This was the first time I had spoken the truth aloud. More than one someone, actually. People I trusted completely. And I didn't see it coming. I drove without destination, just north along the coast, watching the skies slowly lighten from black to deep blue to soft pink. The ocean appeared on my right, vast and endless, as confused and churning as my heart. Hours later, I found myself in a small coastal town I had never heard of, Harbor's Edge. It was the kind of place tourists visited in summer, but locals claimed in winter. Quiet, peaceful, with weathered buildings and boats bobbing in the harbor. I checked into a small bed and breakfast run by a kind older woman who asked no questions when she saw my puffy eyes and exhausted face. "Room 3 has the best ocean view," she said gently, handing me the key. I climbed the stairs, entered the simple room with its white linen and blue curtains, and finally allowed myself to break completely. I cried until there were no tears left. I screamed into pillows. I threw my engagement ring across the room, watching it skitter under the dresser like the worthless piece of metal it had become. And when the storm finally passed, when I lay exhausted and empty on that unfamiliar bed, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Not happiness. That would take much longer. But relief that I had discovered the truth before marrying Marcus. Relief that I hadn't given him and Emma everything they wanted. Relief that somewhere deep inside, I still had enough self-respect to walk away. The stranger's wisdom. I spent the next 2 days barely leaving my room. I ordered food, ignored my phone which buzzed constantly with calls from Marcus, Emma, and my parents, and stared at the ocean, letting its rhythm slowly calm my shattered nerves. On the third morning, I finally ventured out for a walk on the beach. The air was cold and sharp, the sand firm under my feet. A few locals jogged past, nodding politely. Seagulls cried overhead. I walked for miles until I reached a rocky outcrop with a bench overlooking the water. I sat down, pulling my jacket tighter, watching the waves crash. Marcus found me in the crowd immediately, his expression concerned. "There you are? I was looking everywhere for you. Are you okay, darling?" I looked into his eyes, those lying, calculating eyes, and smiled. "I'm perfect. Just needed a moment. Big night, you know." He kissed my forehead. "My beautiful bride-to-be. Just 3 more months." "I can't wait," I said sweetly. And I meant it, just not in the way he thought. The escape. The party ended just after midnight. I hugged guests, thanked them for coming, and played the role of the blissfully happy bride-to-be. Marcus stayed by my side the entire time, his arm around my waist, whispering endearments in my ear that now made my skin crawl. Emma avoided me mostly, which was a mercy. When we did make eye contact, she smiled nervously. Guilt? Or fear of being caught? I smiled back, warm and loving, watching confusion flicker across her face. When the last guest left, my parents retired upstairs, exhausted but happy. Marcus pulled me close for a long kiss. "I should go," he said reluctantly. "Big meeting tomorrow morning. But I'll call you, okay?" "Okay," I whispered, letting him believe I was breathless from his kiss rather than from disgust. Emma disappeared to her room without saying good night to anyone. I waited until the house was completely silent. Then I went to my bedroom and began to pack. Not everything, just essentials, clothes, documents, my laptop, jewelry, and cash. I worked quickly and quietly, my hands steady despite the storm raging inside me. I had no clear plan yet, just one certainty. I needed space to think, away from this house, away from their lies, away from everything that reminded me of my shattered future. At 3 a.m., I carried my suitcase down the back stairs, left a note for my parents saying I needed a few days alone to clear my head before the wedding craziness intensified, and slipped out to my car. Deepest fears with, including my fear that no one would ever truly love me for who I was, not for my family's money. She had taken that vulnerability and weaponized it. The pain was unbearable. I wanted to run downstairs, to scream the truth to everyone, to rip that smug smile off Marcus's face and tell my sister exactly what I thought of her betrayal. But something stopped me. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the years of business training from my father. Never make decisions in the heat of emotion, Sophia. Always think strategically. Or maybe it was something darker, something I didn't know lived inside me until that moment. If I confronted them now, they would make excuses. Marcus would cry, say it was a mistake, that he was drunk. Emma would sob and apologize. My parents would pressure me to forgive, to think of the family's reputation, to not make a scene. And what would I be left with? Public humiliation. A canceled wedding. whispers and pity from everyone who knew me. Marcus and Emma would eventually be together anyway, probably claiming they fell in love after my heartbreak, making themselves the victims of circumstance. No, they didn't deserve that easy ending. I stood up slowly, wiping my tears, looking at myself in the antique mirror on the wall. My mascara had run, my eyes were red and swollen, but behind the pain, I saw something else emerging. Determination. I would not give them the satisfaction of breaking me. I would not play the victim in their cruel story. If they wanted to destroy me, they would have to work much harder. And while they thought they were winning, I would be planning something bigger, something they would never see coming. I fixed my makeup as best I could, took several deep breaths, and unlocked the library door. The party sounds drifted up from below, music, laughter, celebration of a love that didn't exist. I walked back downstairs on steady legs, my face a mask of happiness. Emma laughed again, that horrible, tinkling laugh I used to find so sweet. My sister, the genius businesswoman, completely blind. Daddy always loved her more, gave her more attention, more opportunities. Let's see how much he loves her when she brings shame to the family name. Revenge and money, Marcus said, kissing her neck. The perfect combination. Though I have to admit, playing the devoted fiancé is exhausting. The woman talks constantly about wedding plans, future babies, growing old together. It's nauseating. Babies. We had discussed having 3 children. He had held my hand and promised to be the best father. All lies. Every single word. The breaking point. My legs finally remembered how to work. I stumbled backward, my hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. Tears blurred my vision as I ran, not back to the party, but to the small library at the other end of the hallway. I locked the door behind me and collapsed onto the leather couch where my father used to read me stories as a child. The sobs came in waves, each one more painful than the last. My chest felt like it was being crushed. My beautiful engagement ring, 3 carats of carefully chosen diamonds, suddenly felt like a shackle. How long had this been going on? How many times had they laughed at me behind my back? How many lies had I swallowed with a smile? I thought about every moment with Marcus. The way he had pursued me so intensely after that conference. How he always knew exactly what to say to make me feel special. How he had charmed my father, befriended my mother, and spent extra time with Emma because I want your family to be my family. It was all calculated. Every gesture, every gift, every tender moment, carefully planned to deceive me. And Emma, my little sister, who I had protected from playground bullies, helped through heartbreaks, supported through college. The sister I had shared my. They both laughed. The sound echoed in my ears like thunder. Once we're married, Marcus continued, I'll have access to her father's company. That's $40 million in assets, Emma. The old man already trusts me. He's even talking about making me vice president. Once I'm in, I'll slowly move funds, create some accounting errors, and by the time anyone notices, we'll be long gone. With the money. Together. And Sophia? Emma's voice held something. Not quite guilt, but maybe curiosity about their victim. What about her? Marcus shrugged. Once I have what I need, I'll divorce her. Take half of everything in the settlement. She'll be so heartbroken and humiliated, she probably won't even fight it. Then you and I can finally be together publicly. No more hiding. I've waited so long, Emma sighed. Ever since you and I met at that coffee shop 6 months before you accidentally bumped into Sophia at that conference. This plan better work, Marcus. 6 months before. They had met 6 months before me. This was all planned. Every smile, every kiss, every I love you Marcus had given me, it was all a lie. A performance. And my own sister was his co-star. It's already working, baby. Marcus pulled Emma close again. Sophia is so in love, so trusting. Tomorrow she's signing papers to add me to her personal accounts. Just a precaution, I told her, in case something happens before the wedding. The fool actually thought it was romantic. I had signed those papers this morning. Smiling. Believing. What about her friends? Emma asked. That lawyer friend, Jennifer, she's always been suspicious of you. I've convinced Sophia that Jennifer is just jealous because she's single, Marcus said smugly. Sophia barely talks to her anymore. I've isolated her from anyone who might warn her. By the wedding, she'll have no one but us. Then I heard it. A laugh. Low and intimate, coming from the guest room at the end of the hall. Emma's laugh. And a man's voice responding. Deep, familiar. Marcus's voice. My feet stopped moving. My heart, which had been so light and happy moments ago, suddenly felt heavy as stone. There had to be an explanation. Maybe they were planning a surprise for me. Maybe Marcus was asking Emma about my favorite honeymoon destinations. But something in my gut twisted painfully. I moved closer, my hand trembling as I reached for the door handle. It was slightly ajar, just enough for sound to slip through, just enough for me to peer inside without being seen. What I saw destroyed me. The truth, in whispers. Marcus had Emma pressed against the wall, his hands tangled in her hair, kissing her with a passion I thought he reserved only for me. Her silver bridesmaid dress, the one I had helped her choose, was wrinkled, her lipstick smeared. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, couldn't scream. They broke apart, breathing heavily. Emma giggled, actually giggled, and touched Marcus's face tenderly. We need to be more careful, Marcus said, straightening his tie. Just a few more months, and we'll have everything we want. I can't wait much longer, Emma whispered. Watching you pretend to love her, watching her parade around like she's so perfect, it's torture. My sister. My own sister. Marcus chuckled darkly. She is perfect, isn't she? Perfectly naive. Perfectly trusting. Perfectly easy to manipulate. The words cut deeper than any knife could. Do you think she suspects anything? Emma asked, worry creeping into her voice. Sophia? Please. Marcus's voice dripped with contempt. She's so desperate to be loved. She sees what she wants to see. Did you notice how she practically begged me to meet her family on the second date? How she kept asking if I was sure I wanted to marry her. The woman has no confidence. It's almost sad. Welcome to Twisted Heartstrings. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories that will touch your heart. The champagne glasses clinked around me like tiny bells celebrating my future. My future with Marcus. Our engagement party was everything I had dreamed of. White roses cascading down the pillars, soft golden lights twinkling above, and 200 guests dressed in their finest, all here to celebrate our love. I stood in my silver gown, smiling until my cheeks hurt, accepting congratulations from relatives and friends. My father squeezed my shoulder proudly. You chose well, Sophia, he whispered. Marcus will take good care of you and help with the company when I retire. Marcus. Just thinking his name made my heart flutter. Tall, charming, with dark hair that fell perfectly across his forehead and eyes that seemed to see straight into my soul. We had met 8 months ago at a business conference where I was representing my father's shipping company. He was a financial consultant, smart and ambitious. Our connection was instant, electric. Where's Emma? I asked my mother, scanning the crowd for my younger sister. She was supposed to help me cut the cake. My mother frowned slightly. I saw her slip upstairs a few minutes ago. You know how she gets at parties. Probably needed a moment alone. I nodded, understanding. Emma had always been the quieter sister, more sensitive, sometimes overshadowed by my achievements. But I loved her fiercely. We shared everything, clothes, secrets, dreams. She was my maid of honor, my best friend. I'll go find her, I said, lifting my gown slightly as I headed toward the grand staircase of our family estate. The music and laughter faded as I climbed the stairs, my heels sinking into the plush carpet. Upstairs was quieter, dimmer. Most of the party was happening in the ballroom and gardens below. I walked down the familiar hallway, past family portraits and childhood memories hanging on the walls.